Hi, and welcome to Beyond the Paycheck. I'm Paula Christine. Today I welcome Jeff Kikel, author of Freedom Day. Jeff works with individuals and business owners to help them find their Freedom Day, which is the first day that they wake up and don't have to go to work. I, too, would like to have my Freedom Day, so I'm excited to learn more. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, Paula.
What is Freedom Day?
I've been in the financial business for almost 30 years, doing financial planning, retirement planning. And what I noticed about, call it 2014, 2015, is I was starting to see a disconnect in my clients. The younger clients had been through kind of that post-2008 4-hour work week world. That's kind of what they grew up in. And they're looking at retirement different from my generation and generations before me, because they were looking at, well, hey, I want to have fun now. I want to enjoy life. I want to live now. I don't want to wait 40 years and then, have to sell my house, downsize it, have one car, wear black socks with sandals and take one cruise per year. I want to do things now.
I can handle the black socks with the sandals, but I can't handle the white socks with the sandals. Just got to put that out there.
And the one cruise per year just didn't work for me either. I looked at it from that point, that, okay, my younger ones were there, but my older clients, let's say 50s and beyond, were starting to look at things and go, oh, crap, I didn't really do a very good job of saving. I've been through a couple downturns in the market. I don't have enough. I'm not going to make it. And I started to realize, one, that the retirement system was broken, and two, that we had to figure out something that worked for both sets of clients. And it just so happened I was sitting down with somebody one day, and I basically can look at somebody's numbers, and without running it through software, I can basically tell you it's going to work or it isn't. And I just happened to say, well, hey, you're at your Freedom Day. And he looked at me kind of funny and said, what do you mean by Freedom Day? And I said, well, you got up and went to work today and you didn't have to. You have a work optional lifestyle. And I saw this big smile come on his face. And I started using that term over and over and over again and stopped using the term retirement, because retirement sounds like something that I have no control over and it's some time-based thing. I'm retired at 66, some arbitrary number that the government picked for retirement. I started looking at Freedom Day as, well, you have control over this. You don't have to worry about the governmental programs. You're focused on your lifestyle and your work optional lifestyle, which you can control if you do some things. And so that really became Freedom Day. And then I started to develop, I was basically the guinea pig for all of this in my own life. And I started trying different things, developing different sources of income, coming up and realizing that the reason the retirement system was broken is because we in the retirement business focused on these massive sums of money, and we didn't focus on cash flow. And if you focus on cash flow, you can get to your Freedom Day much faster, because you can develop different sources of income and not worry about amassing millions of dollars.
So if I understand the philosophy correctly, your Freedom Day is the day that you have enough money, doesn't matter your age, that you have enough money where if you didn't have to go to work the next day, you would be okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have enough cash flow.
Okay, cash flow.
And you have enough cash flow to cover 125% of what I call your minimum required income.
Okay, so explain that.
You do a budget. There's some fluff in everybody's budget, but there is a base level of income that I need to make to be able to live my life. Once you have 125% of that number, which I call minimum required income, you are free. You're free that day. Now, it doesn't mean you're a millionaire. It doesn't mean you can do nothing for the rest of your life, but you've reached a point where you have enough passive income that if you chose not to get up and go to work that day, you don't have to.
So let's say that my expense need is $3,000 a month. So 125% of that is rounded up is $3,800 a month.
Absolutely.
So if I have assets, reoccurring revenue, those things that can give me that $3,800 a month, then I'm free.
You're free. As long as it's not active things that you have to do, you are free at that point. So, what we try and do is, first off, we try and get people to retrain their brain a little bit If you've been in a paycheck mindset your entire life, it's okay. I get up, I give my job 40 or 50 hours of my time every week, and I get a paycheck. Well, that's not going to work, going into later in life, especially once you reach retirement. You're not really thinking from a paycheck perspective.
Well, you don't get a paycheck, really.
You don't get a paycheck anymore. So you've got to have something that's going to do this. And if you're going to rely on the way that the retirement industry has been, well, you've got to have, $2.5 million to be able to cover your expenses. For most people, that's not a reality. But for most people that want to, they could go out and say, hey, well, I want to do a little side hustle. I want to do something that generates some extra income. Or maybe instead of just pouring money into my 401k, I might take some of that money and get into real estate or start a little side business or something along those lines that provides recurring revenue, provides passive income. And eventually you're going to get to the point where you transition to the point where one day you woke up and you got enough to come in to cover your MRI, 125% of your MRI, and boom, you didn't have to go to work that day.
What's MRI again?
Minimum required income.
By the way, Paula, you could have 125% of your MRI as that. You could not have 125% of what an MRI costs as a medical procedure these days. That's a lot harder.
Yeah, it's a little bit more difficult.
Okay, smartass. So let me think this through. Let's just make easy numbers for me. I need $3,000 a month for my minimum retirement income, my MRI.
Required income. Yep.
Minimum required income.
Let's get the acronym right before we get into the numbers.
Thanks.
Come on now.
He's feisty today. So I need $3,000, and that can come from investment returns or withdrawals from my investments.
Mm-hmm.
It could come from potentially Social Security if we're talking about retirement.
If you did it later in life.
Yeah. It could come from rental income.
Uh-huh.
Aside.
Could come from creating a course and selling it. Yeah.
Okay.
Or the combination thereof. I encourage people to have multiple streams of income.
I get that as I'm younger, but when I'm 75, do I still want all of that? You know what I mean? Do I still want to be doing a side hustle? And I wish I would have did rental income, bought rental property when I was younger. I think that's a great income source, especially for retirement.
Yeah, but that can start at any time.
True.
As long as it's passive income. The problem is people have this belief that, okay, if you're going to get into real estate, I'm going to have to be cleaning toilets and all that. Well, no, don't. That's active income. That's not passive income. There are multitudes of ways to invest in real estate where you're not cleaning toilets, and you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't manage your own properties. I own about 25 different properties in 4 different states, and most of those I've never stepped foot in. I've never even seen them besides on a camera.
Jeff, you're talking about something that Paul and I have talked about in many previous episodes, which is just diversifying your income, having many different streams of income. And Paula, we've talked about many of these types of income in previous episodes. It's a matter of adding that up to get to that magic 125% number.
Absolutely.
My brain is going like, how can I do this? How can I do this? And that I'm trying to talk to you at the same time, but my brain's going,
yeah.
Okay, I want to do that. I want to do that.
Yeah. How do you do it? One step at a time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Find one that interests you. Typically what I teach people to do is, if they're coming out of that paycheck mindset, one of the key components of the Freedom Day method, which there's 8 steps in the Freedom Day method. Step 2, after we've built a budget and figured out our MRI, is we build a bucket list of things that we can reward ourselves with, or things that we've wanted to do before we die. And the first step in this process to kind of get people going is to choose out of that bucket list. And we do 100. We do 10 things in 10 categories. And then we choose 3 to 4 that we can do in the next 6 months. We sit down and say, okay, what training do I need to have to do this? What equipment do I have to do this? One of my bucket list items was I wanted to be able to play my favorite song on a guitar. So, I had to sit down and think about, well, all right, so I need to figure out how to play the song. I need a guitar, and then I need to practice over time. Okay, well, only one of those things really did I need because I didn't really need to take lessons. I just needed to watch YouTube stuff and learn how to play this one song, because it was my only goal, was to play this one song.
What's the song?
The song is Ventura Highway by America.
Okay, no, that's that.
One of my absolute coolest favorite song. And it's a really not difficult piece, but it's difficult enough for one person because it was meant for two guitars. So one person playing, it's like, you need 4 arms to do it. But, I looked at that and I said, okay, well, I need a guitar. I can buy an inexpensive one for $120 or so on Amazon. Boom, done. All right, great. Now I just have to practice. So I knew, okay, my budget was $125. Another thing on my list, I realized that I'm kind of a freak about planes, trains, and automobiles. And I realized there were 10 items on my list that were everything from I wanted to drive a Lamborghini at the F1 track here in Austin. I wanted to fly on a World War II bomber. I wanted to be on this train that's like really incredible old train. There's only one of them in existence in the world. All of those things cost between like $400 and $600. And I realized, well, there's 12 of them. So if I just did one of those a month for the next year, all I really needed to do was create an income source that was $500 a month. And I quickly realized, well, I could do that very simply in real estate. There's some techniques that I use in real estate that really don't require a whole lot of money down. We work with a very specific clientele. And I was able to, within about 2 weeks, get a piece of property under my control, turned around, rented it out for a little extra $500 a month. And then I started this year doing my planes, trains, and automobiles every month.
That's great. I love that. My brain is going crazy. I'm like, I can't wait to sit down and figure out how I'm going to do that.
Yeah. At the end of the year, when I'm done with my 12 things, I still have the $500 income coming in per month. So I could use it for other bucket list items. If I had debt, I could pay down the debt. I mean, there's a bazillion things I could do, but it's changing people's mindset. Because the problem is people are like, I can't do this. I can't afford this. I'll put it on credit because I want it today. No, I want you to stop, retrain your brain and say, how can I pay for this? What can I do to pay for this? And it was very simple for me. I mean, instantly I went, okay, well, I could create a course. Yeah, maybe I could create one that's going to be $500 a month, but I can't be sure of that because I've had some that have taken off and done well, and I've had some that are just a complete turd and they haven't gone anywhere.
Right.
So I wanted something that I could predict, and it was really easy to go, okay, if I go out, do a master lease of a property, work with, a local real estate person who doesn't want to manage their property anymore, come in, master lease it, turn around, lease it out to traveling nurses, which is what we do mostly. And that netted me an extra $500 a month. Done. And I don't have to think about it again.
I have a little sticky that sits by my computer and it says, what can I do today to make money? So it's kind of the same philosophy.
I love it. And that's what you have to do. That's it. And once you have that mindset, then you start to look at that and it's like, okay, you're $3,800 or $3,000. That's not so hard.
No, it's not.
I mean, I could just rinse and repeat the same scenario and say, okay, well, for the next 7 to 10 months, I'm just going to focus my effort on finding the right property, securing that property, not necessarily having to buy it, but securing, my control over that property, and then use a strategy that I know works, which will generate enough delta above what I'm paying for that property. And boom, I'm done. I don't even have to own anything. At that point, I don't need any credit. I don't need to own anything. I can control property. Very much the way I invest, in the stock market. I typically don't just buy individual securities. I'll typically use options where I can control a larger amount of securities with a smaller amount of money and use leverage.
You're very interesting. There's so many takeaways for me just personally.
Yeah. And I mean, it just takes sitting down and saying, okay, I'm going to focus on one or two things. One, I want to reward myself for being successful. So you pick something you're going to reward yourself, something on your bucket list. And then once that's done, once your brain starts to get retrained, you start going, wow, you know what? If I followed what Jeff said and I learned about master leases and I learned about working with traveling nurses, okay, boom. Let's say I make $200 or $500, delta per month above. Okay, well, it's not going to take too many of those. 6 to 7 of those are going to get me to my $3,000 a month, and I'm free. And then I can just keep doing the same thing over and over again. I've got some friends that are up in Colorado that do this with short-term, rentals, and they manage like 250 properties. So I mean,
it's a little bit more than $3,000 or $500 a month. That's for sure.
They wake up every morning knowing that, okay, well, this month we're going to bring in, $25,000. And the winter season, when people are up there skiing, they know they're going to make 25, 30 grand a month without blinking an eye. So even if they have a slow month or a slow period of time, they've made so much that year, they don't worry about their minimum required income.
What do you do with clients who can't get out of that paycheck mindset?
You've got to want it. That's one of the challenges that I find with clients. And this was a bit of a challenge, coming from the traditional wealth management world, which I could do it the easy way. And just everybody comes into me, well, hey, let me put together a financial plan for you and let me invest your money for you. Okay, great. We'll get 8 to 10% per year, and, we'll get you to that point by age 66. I still have people that come to me that way, and we can't get them out of that paycheck mindset. And I work with them like I would traditionally, but there is a small subset of people. I'd say 20% of the people I interact with that this resonates with, and they're just people that are like, okay, what I've been sold down the road was I have to do this for 40 years. I have to save, 10% or 15% of my income, and I'll get there. Well, I don't want that. I want something different. So the Freedom Day message resonates with that client who's a little bit different, who's willing to look outside the box or knows that there's something better for them out there. Otherwise, I work with people still, whatever I can do. I do encourage them to do some other things like, okay, let's take part of your money and let's look at some of these alternative assets and alternative ways to generate cash flow. But one thing I do is I do focus on cash flow now and not on just, let's save up $2 million. We're going to focus on cash flow. And we're going to look at things that can generate a higher level of cash flow than the 4% that the mutual fund or, brokerage industry will tell you can take out.
I love that. Focus on cash flow instead. And, I think the younger generation today, they're much more open to.
They're getting it.
Yeah.
I think, one, there's a ton of people like me that are out there talking about this on YouTube. I've got a YouTube channel and, I throw up a video and I get 3,000 people. And if I put something about real estate, I'll get 3,000 to 4,000 or 5,000 people watching a video because I think there is that demand. Okay, I want something different. And I get this whole thing about creating an income source, or, different income sources and multiple income streams. They just get it. Now they all think that they're going to become a bazillionaire and drive a Lamborghini in like a year and a half, which, I hate to tell them it's, I look at myself and I'm a 10-year overnight success with this. So,
Jeff, we've only talked about 2 of the 8 steps that you talk about in Freedom Day. So how can someone get a hold of your book?
We've got the Freedom Day book that's coming out on Amazon early August. But if somebody wants just kind of an overview of the process, or what I call the Freedom Day method, if you go to www.freedomdaymethod.com, you can actually download kind of what I would call the Cliff Notes version of the big book that walks you through the 8 steps of the Freedom Day process, and gives you some other resources, the podcast that I do, the YouTube channel and everything else. You can get more tools to play with.
I love that. Thank you. What is the name of your podcast?
Freedom Nation Podcast. And it's just freedomnationpodcast.com.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Jeff. I know we're having you back next week to talk about how to create a side business a little bit more than about the rental. Mm-hmm. So I look forward to talking to you next week.
Brilliant.
So if anybody wants to get a hold of me, they can reach out to me at paulachristine.com, or you could check out my website at paulachristine.com. Thanks.